This training will reference the following sections of the Code of Conduct and Welfare document. 1. Introduction and Mission Alignment Preamble, Sections 1 and 2, 15 minutes. 2. Financial Integrity and Anti-Fraud Sections 10J, N, 16.3, 16.4, 15.3, and 15.5, 25 minutes. 3. Collusion, Cover UPS and Shared Liability Sections 10K, 13F, 15.3, 17, 20 minutes. For Loan Provision and Financial Emergency Relief Welfare Policy Sections 2.5 and 7.2, 15 minutes. 5. Attendance, Punctuality and Accountability Sections 8, 10, C, 15.1 and 15.2, 20 minutes. 6. De-escalation, Anti-Confrontation and Stumbling Out Sections 10, P, Q, 13, B, D, 15.4, 18, 20 minutes. 7. Bullying, Positional Abuse and Customer Service Sections 10N, 13E, 19, 15.3, 20 minutes. 8. Child Protection, Authoritative Section 7, Supersedes All Others, 20 minutes. 9. Speaking Up, Safe Reporting and Due Process Sections 9, 15.0, 15.7, 18.4, 19, 23, 15 minutes. 10. Welfare Policy, Benefits, Loans and Protections Welfare Policy Sections 2 to 3, 15 minutes. Q&A, Scenario Debrief and Signed Acknowledgement, all sections 15 minutes. Stopwatch Block 1. Introduction, Mission Alignment and the Genesis of Accountability. Time, midnight to 0:15. Duration, 15 minutes. Delivery Style, Grounded, Authoritative, Reflective, and Engaging. Code of Conduct Anchors. Preamble, Section 1, Purpose and Objectives. Section 2, Core Professional Standards. Welfare Policy Anchor. Core Philosophy, Punctuality and Regularity. Let's begin. Good morning, team. Welcome to what is one of the most important professional development sessions you will attend this year. Not because we are issuing new rules today, but because we are making sure that every single person in this room understands, at a deep level, what this campaign stands for, what it demands of you, and what it offers you in return. The Save the DPS campaign was established on a foundational covenant that every child in Egbalu and Guru deserves free, high-quality education regardless of the economic circumstances of their family. That is not a slogan. It is a binding operational mission, and every one of you, as a community teacher officer, is a custodian of that mission. When you signed your acknowledgement to this code of conduct, you did not merely sign an administrative form. You entered a covenant with these children, their parents, this community, and with each other. Today we are going to examine what that covenant looks like in practice, not in theory. 1.2. Understanding the fiduciary responsibility of a CTO. The word fiduciary comes from the Latin fiducia, meaning trust. A fiduciary is someone who holds a position of trust and is legally and morally obligated to act in the best interest of those they serve. As a CTO, you hold fiduciary responsibilities across 4 dimensions. To the pupils, you are trusted with the intellectual, social, and emotional development of children who are entirely dependent on the adults in their school environment. To the parents and community, parents place their most precious asset, their children, into your care. The entire Egbalu and Gur community is watching and trusting this campaign to deliver. To the campaign, you are a steward of campaign resources, financial, material, reputational, and operational. Every naira collected, every device used, every assessment conducted is a campaign responsibility you carry. To your colleagues, you are part of an interdependent professional team. Your professionalism, or the absence of it, directly impacts the quality of experience of every other staff member and student. 1.3. The campaign's core purpose. Section 1, Unpacked. Section 1 of the Code of Conduct establishes 8 specific purposes that every operational rule in this document is designed to serve. The trainer should walk through each one with deliberate emphasis. Safeguard the physical, emotional, and psychological safety of every pupil. This is non-negotiable and supersedes all other considerations under Section 7. Uphold the integrity and public trust of the campaign. Your private behavior reflects on this institution. Promote respectful, Professional relationships at every level of the school ecosystem. Create a positive, inclusive, fear-free learning environment. Provide clear, enforceable standards with escalating consequences for violations. Establish rigid frameworks for the stewardship and financial accountability of all campaign assets. Define professional boundaries for conflict resolution, keeping all affairs internal. Align all operations with Nigerian labor law, child protection legislation, and international educational governance standards. Trainer emphasis point. Spend deliberate time on point 8. Many staff are unaware that this campaign standards are anchored in the Nigerian Labor Act, Cap N 61, LFN 2004, the Child Rights Act 2003, and the TRCN, Teachers Registration Council of Nigeria. Professional frameworks. These are not internal rules that can be negotiated away. They are legally grounded standards. Violations have consequences that can extend beyond this organization into the Nigerian legal system. 1.4 Core Professional Standards, Section 2. Section 2 establishes 5 foundational standards that apply to every staff member at all times, on-site, off-site, in person, and digitally. Professionalism, integrity, transparency, and accountability in all duties and interactions. A genuine respect for all individuals regardless of gender, age, ethnicity, religion, disability, or socioeconomic background. Unwavering commitment to academic excellence and the holistic well-being of every pupil. Full compliance with campaign policies, child protection laws, and all lawful instructions from constituted authority. Proactive self-development and a reflective growth mindset. Trainers should particularly stress Standard 4. Full compliance with all lawful instructions from constituted authority means that disagreeing with a directive is not a license to ignore it. The code provides formal, structured channels for raising concerns, and those channels must be used. 1.5 The Welfare Policy's Core Philosophy. The 2026 Staff Welfare Policy opens with a declaration of operational baseline, punctuality, and regularity. This tells us something important. The campaign does not merely demand compliance. It offers a structured, protective professional environment in return for consistent, reliable excellence. The welfare policy explicitly states that instructional staff members are our most critical organizational assets. This is not motivational rhetoric. It is the justification for the entire suite of benefits this campaign provides, from interest-free loans to maternity leave to critical illness protection. But these benefits are inseparable from the professional responsibilities that accompany them. Clipboard Block 1 Scenario. The weight of the title. Adiz recently joined as a CTO. She is brilliant in the classroom but has developed a habit of arriving at school 5 minutes late on Mondays, arguing that nothing important happens in the first 5 minutes anyway. She also uses the school's laptop to run her small clothing business during prep periods, uploading catalog photos to her Instagram. When the head teacher raises the issue, she says, "It's just 5 minutes, and I'm using my own data." She does not believe these are real violations. Memo discussion questions for the room. 1. Using Section 2 of the Code of Conduct, identify at least 3 distinct professional standards that Adiz is violating. Be specific about which standard and why it applies. 2. Section 10G of the Code defines campaign assets/school property. Does the school laptop fall under this definition when being used for a personal commercial activity? What penalty does Section 16.3F attach to this? 3. Adiz claims ignorance of the laptop policy. Under the Preamble and Section 21C, is ignorance a valid defense? What does the code say explicitly? 4. As her team lead, how would you approach this conversation professionally while also protecting your own accountability under the code? Stopwatch Block 2, Financial Integrity, Cash Suppression, and the Anatomy of Fraud. Time, 0:15 to 0:40 duration, 25 minutes. Delivery style, laser-focused, highly technical, unyielding on compliance. Code of Conduct Anchors, Section 10J, K, X, Y. Section 16.3, Absolute Care Protocol. Section 16.4, Liability and Financial Recovery. Section 15.3 and 15.5. Welfare Policy Anchor, Section 2.5, Financial Protection and Credit Facilities. 2.1 Why financial integrity is non-negotiable. The Save the DPS campaign is a community-funded, community-trusted initiative. It receives no government subsidy and operates entirely on the financial contributions, school fees, uniform payments, book contributions, and donations of families who are themselves under economic strain. Every naira collected is sacred. It is not school money in the abstract. It is the specific, hard-earned contribution of a parent who chose to invest their limited income into the education of their child. When financial misconduct occurs, the direct victim is not an institution. It is a 7-year-old child who will not receive the textbook that was paid for, or the 8-year-old who will not be registered because the registration fund was misappropriated. Financial violations at the CTO level are not administrative infractions. They are betrayals of children. 2.2 Defined Offenses, Financial Abuse. Section 15.3 of the Code categorizes financial abuse as one of the most serious behavioral, professional, and abuse violations. The specific definition from Section 10 includes extortion, bribery, and the collection of any unauthorized fees from parents or pupils. Offense occurrence penalty. Financial abuse, extortion, bribery, unauthorized fees. First occurrence final warning letter plus variable fine/suspension or summary dismissal, depending on severity. Financial abuse second occurrence maximum fine plus immediate summary dismissal. What counts as unauthorized fees? Asking parents for money for cleaning supplies that the campaign provides. Charging additional fees for extra help sessions or tutoring. Section 4(I) prohibits using campaign premises for paid tutoring. Collecting administrative charges for registrations that are meant to be handled centrally. Accepting cash from parents for special treatment of their child's assessment. Requesting donations for personal or community causes using the school's name or platform. 2.3 The 24-hour remittance rule. Section 16.3(d). The code is unambiguous. Any staff member who collects physical cash or a bank transfer on behalf of the campaign for registrations, uniforms, books, donations, or any other purpose must remit 100% of the collected funds to the designated campaign account or financial officer before close of business or within 24 hours of receipt. The critical addition, Section 16.3(e) states that holding any campaign funds beyond the 24-hour window without explicit written clearance from a campaign manager constitutes deception and financial abuse and shall trigger immediate disciplinary action. The 24-hour rule, what it covers and what it does not. Covered: cash collected from parents for registration, uniform purchases, book levies, any donations made in person or via direct transfer to a staff member's number. Covered: any funds received on a holiday or weekend. 24 hours begins from the moment of receipt, not from the next business day, unless explicitly cleared in writing by a campaign manager. Not covered: petty cash already authorized for minor school expenses. This has its own separate protocol with mandatory receipt documentation. Critical: explicitly written clearance means a documented, digital or paper approval from a campaign manager. A verbal approval is not sufficient protection. 2.4 Understanding delayed remittance. Section 10(x). The code defines delayed remittance as failing to transfer collected funds to the designated campaign account within the mandatory 24-hour financial window without explicit written approval from a campaign manager. Delayed remittance is tracked under the Financial Abuse Disciplinary Track, Section 15.3, and additionally triggers the asset negligence provisions of Section 15.5(4). This means a single act of holding funds can simultaneously generate consequences from two sections of the sanction grid. 2.5 The anatomy of fraud, the slippery slope. Financial violations in organizations rarely begin as intentional theft. They follow a predictable psychological and operational pattern. Understanding this pattern is how we prevent it, both in ourselves and in colleagues we observe. Stage phase, what actually happens. 1. Personal financial stress. A real emergency creates genuine financial pressure. Medical bill, family crisis, unexpected expense. 2. Rationalization and temporary borrowing. The staff member convinces themselves it is a loan they will repay. It is only for 48 hours. I always replace it. 3. First crossing of the line. The first 5,000 Nigerian nairas or 10,000 Nigerian nairas is taken. The most critical moment. This is where intervention must happen. 4. Cash suppression begins. Replacement funds do not arrive as planned. Incoming cash from the next parent covers the gap. The cycle begins. 5. Systemic concealment. Receipts are delayed. Records are altered. Colleagues are drawn in with small favors or silence. 6. Full collusion and falsification. Records are forged. Digital checklists are falsified. The scheme requires active deception of multiple parties. 7. Collapse and consequences. An audit, an unannounced check, or a whistleblower report exposes the entire structure. Police involvement, termination, community disgrace. 2.6. Cash suppression explained. Cash suppression is a specific form of financial fraud particularly dangerous in school environments where cash flows are frequent and informal. It occurs when a staff member collects funds from multiple parents or donors but deliberately delays recording or remitting them, using the continuous influx of new funds to cover previously created shortfalls. The operational damage of cash suppression. Budget blindness. Management cannot see the actual financial health of the campaign. Decisions about purchasing textbooks, repairing infrastructure, or paying allowances are made on false data. Supply disruption. Orders for school supplies are delayed or canceled because the bank account shows insufficient funds, while the real money sits undeclared in a staff member's pocket or phone wallet. Audit collapse. When a formal audit arrives, suppressed transactions surface all at once, creating discrepancies that are nearly impossible to explain away. Legal escalation. Under Nigerian law, cash suppression constitutes fraudulent conversion and embezzlement, moving this from a disciplinary matter to a criminal one. 2.7. Petty cash, expenses, and receipt integrity. Section 16.3 of the Code governs the handling of all campaign physical resources. Petty cash is defined as minor, pre-authorized amounts dispersed for specific, immediate operational needs, emergency chalk, a replacement light bulb, or a documented minor repair. The Code is explicit about what constitutes deception and falsification in the context of expenses. Section 10J defines falsification as intentionally providing false, altered, or misleading information, records, timesheets, portal logs, roll call, or student grades. This definition expressly covers expense records. At every petty cash disbursement requires an immediate, dated, physical receipt. Inflating transport costs. Recording a 1,500 Nigerian nairas Kiki fare as 3,500 Nigerian nairas is falsification of records. A writing expense totals on scrap paper with no accompanying receipt is deception. Using petty cash for personal items and replacing it before the end of day is still financial abuse. Intent does not retroactively legalize an unauthorized appropriation. Offense occurrence penalty. Falsification of records. First occurrence 7-day suspension without pay. Falsification of records. Second occurrence immediate termination plus potential legal action. Deception/dishonesty. First occurrence formal written warning. Deception/dishonesty. Second occurrence final written warning. Deception/dishonesty. Third occurrence 2-week suspension without pay plus permanent status review. 2.8 Nigerian legal context. Fraudulent conversion. In the Nigerian criminal law framework, the act of taking money entrusted to you for a specific purpose and applying it to any other use, even temporarily, constitutes fraudulent conversion. This is codified in criminal statutes and has been successfully prosecuted against clerks, administrators, and school officials across multiple states. The fact that the money was returned before the audit is legally irrelevant once an investigation is opened. Prosecution can proceed on the basis of the original act of conversion. Temporary borrowing is not a recognized legal defense. The campaign's referral to law enforcement authorities for financial violations is therefore not a threat. It is a description of the legal reality. Clipboard Block 2 Scenario A. The medicine money. Chisholm is the lead office keeper for the week. On Wednesday morning, A parent brings 10,000 Nigerian nairas cash for registration. That afternoon, her brother calls saying her child is sick at the clinic and needs 5,000 Nigerian nairas immediately for medicine before a doctor will attend. Chisholm has no money in her account, but her salary arrives in 48 hours. She takes 5,000 Nigerian nairas from the registration cash, buys the medicine, and intends to replace it from her salary on Friday. Memo discussion questions for the room. 5. List every specific rule in the Code of Conduct that Chisholm has violated. Cite the relevant section numbers. 6. Does the fact that Chisholm is certain she will replace the money within 48 hours change her legal exposure under Nigerian law or her disciplinary exposure under Section 15.3? Why or why not? 7. What should Chisholm have done instead? Walk us through the correct protocol step by step, referencing the code and the welfare policy's provisions in Section 2.5. 8. If Chisholm replaces the money on Friday before anyone notices, has she avoided all consequences? What does Section 16.3e say about this? 9. If you were Chisholm's colleague and you saw her take the money, what is your obligation under the Code of Conduct? What happens if you say nothing? Clipboard Block 2 Scenario B. The inflated receipt. Onika is asked to travel across town to collect a package of school supplies. The actual Kiki fare for the round trip is 1,800 Nigerian nairas. When he submits his expenses, he records 4,500 Nigerian nairas, explaining to himself that he spent extra time and his efforts deserve compensation. He submits the handwritten figure on a torn page with no receipt. The head teacher initially approves it without checking. Memo discussion questions for the room. 10. Under Section 10J, which specific acts of deception or falsification has Onika committed? Be precise. 11. Even though the head teacher approved the amount, does that approval protect Onika from disciplinary consequences if the discrepancy is later discovered? Why or why not? 12. If the exact price of the Kiki fare can be established through an audit, what penalties does Onika face under Section 15.3 for falsification of records? 13. What should the correct process for expense documentation look like? Design the ideal process in 4 steps. Stopwatch Block 3. Collusion, cover UPS, and stewardship shared liability. Time. 0:40 to 1 o'clock duration, 20 minutes. Delivery style. Grave, uncompromising, emphasizing collective accountability. Code of Conduct Anchors, Section 10K, Section 13F, Section 15.3, 26 to 28, Section 17, Stewardship, Section 15.5, V, 6. 3.1 Defining Collusion, Section 10K. The code provides a precise and broad definition of collusion. It is not limited to 2 people sitting down to plan a fraud together. Under Section 10K, collusion explicitly includes secretly cooperating or conspiring with another staff member, parent, or third party to violate campaign rules, covering up known misconduct, concealing information that should be reported, manipulating records collaboratively, refusing to speak up when you observe a colleague violating rules. That last point deserves to be said aloud by the trainer and repeated. The Code of Conduct makes silence, deliberate, knowing silence about another person's rule violation, an act of collusion. The silence culture is explicitly named as a threat to institutional integrity in this framework. 3.2 The Friendship Defense. Why it fails. The most common justification for remaining silent about a colleague's misconduct is loyalty or friendship. She is my friend. I cannot report her. We're from the same village. I cannot bring trouble on him. In the cultural context of Egbalu and Guru, these feelings are deeply human and understandable. However, the code is designed to function within this cultural reality precisely because the campaign understands the risks. Consider the actual outcome of silence. Your friend's small violation, left unchecked, grows into a larger fraud. A sudden audit exposes the entire situation, including your knowledge of it and your silence. You are now an accomplice. The penalty that was originally aimed at your friend now applies to you as well. Your friend loses their job and possibly faces prosecution, which could have been prevented had someone intervened early. Key insight for trainers. frames silence not as protection for a colleague, but as a disservice to them. Early intervention, raising a concern through the whistleblower channel, often allows for a managed, supportive resolution. Silence guarantees escalation. The Code's whistleblower protections, Section 18.4, Section 15.7, exist precisely to make reporting safe and consequence-free for the reporting party. 3.3 Sanctions for collusion, progressive track. Offense occurrence penalty. Collusion first occurrence, formal verbal caution. Collusion second occurrence, formal written warning on file. Collusion third occurrence, 1 week suspension without pay. Note that these sanctions apply in addition to any penalties generated by the underlying violation. If a staff member colluded in a financial fraud, they face both the collusion penalties and the financial abuse penalties simultaneously. 3.4 The Weekly Office Stewardship System, Section 17. Section 17 of the Code establishes the weekly stewardship rotation as a cornerstone of the campaign's operational security architecture. 2 staff members, the lead office keeper and the support shield, exercise joint accountability over the school's physical assets, financial collections, and security infrastructure for their assigned week. The stewardship duo is not a ceremonial assignment. Section 8(c) makes the accountability explicit. Both staff members shall exercise absolute care and joint accountability for all assigned items throughout their stewardship rotation. Stewardship duo, specific responsibilities. Early resumption. Both members must be on site by 7:50 a.m., 10 minutes earlier than the standard 7:59 a.m. deadline for all staff, Section 8b. Handover audit. Before assuming duties, the incoming duo must physically verify and confirm receipt of all campaign assets, devices, keys, and materials from the outgoing team, Section 8c. Security sweep. Before final departure, a joint physical sweep of all premises to confirm all doors and windows are secured, all electronics powered down and stored, and all high-value items moved to the safe zone, Section 17.2c. Final departure. No earlier than 1:45 p.m. and only after all pupils and staff have departed, Section 8b. 3.5 False sign-off, an act of deception. Section 15.5(v) states that a stewardship false sign-off results in negative 20 scorecard points for both the lead and the shield, and is treated as deception under Section 10J. This means that clicking Confirm on a digital checklist when you know the physical security sweep has not been properly conducted is not a minor procedural error. It is a formal act of deception with cascading consequences. 3.6 Stewardship penalty grid. Offense occurrence penalty. Lateness, past 7:59 a.m. or early departure, before 1:45 p.m., without authorization per occurrence minus 20 scorecard points plus 1,000 Nigerian Nairas fine. Failure to complete digital security sign-off per occurrence minus 10 scorecard points for both lead keeper and shield. Negligence, unsecured door/window, no loss. First occurrence formal written warning. Security breach resulting in theft or property damage, any occurrence joint replacement liability plus potential summary dismissal. False sign-off any occurrence minus 20 points plus treated as deception under Section 10J. 3.7 Joint replacement liability. Perhaps the most significant operational consequence in the stewardship section is Section 15.5. 6. If a security breach results in theft or property damage, both the lead office keeper and the support shield face joint replacement liability, split proportionally, alongside potential summary dismissal. This means that if a device worth 150,000 Nigerian Nairas goes missing because a door was left unsecured during the duo's rotation, both members could be individually required to contribute 75,000 Nigerian Nairas each from their salaries, regardless of who physically forgot to lock the door. The joint nature of the accountability is not divided, it is shared. Clipboard Block 3 Scenario, the Sign Checklist. Biodun is the support shield for the week. At 1:30 p.m. on Thursday, she watches her lead office keeper, Emeka, her close friend, collect 8,000 Nigerian Nairas in registration cash from a parent. Instead of placing it in a lockbox, Emeka puts the cash directly into his trouser pocket, whispering to Biodun, "My salary account has been blocked temporarily." I will sort out tonight and transfer the money to the school account tomorrow. Just sign off the digital checklist with me so we can go home on time. Memo discussion questions for the room. 14. If Biodun co-signs the digital checklist, which specific offenses has she committed under the code? List the section references and applicable penalty track for each offense. 15. Is Biodun's co-signature legally distinguishable from Emika's act of taking the money? What does the code say about the difference in culpability between the active perpetrator and the silent accomplice? 16. An audit happens at 8 a.m. the next morning, and the 8,000 Nigerian nairas is missing from the account. Walk us through the exact consequences facing both Biodun and Emika under the code, step by step. 17. What should Biodun have done the moment Emika put the cash in his pocket? Not after he asked her to sign, but at that precise moment? What channels are available to her under Section 9? 18. How does the whistleblower protection under Section 15.7 protect Biodun if she chooses to report Emika? Stopwatch Block 4. Structural support, the loan provision, and financial emergency relief. Time: 1 to 1:15. Duration: 15 minutes. Delivery style: warm, supportive, empathetic, normalizing the conversation about financial stress. Welfare policy anchors. Section 2.5. Financial protection and credit facilities. Section 7.2. Emergency salary advance. Proposed. 4.1. The philosophy behind the loan provision. The campaign does not operate in a vacuum. We understand the economic reality of Nigeria in 2026, escalating food costs, fuel price volatility, sudden medical emergencies, school levies for your own children, and the unpredictable demands of extended family responsibility. Financial stress is not a character flaw. It is a circumstance that can affect anyone on this team. The campaign's loan provision was deliberately designed to interrupt the precise moment described in Stage 2 of the fraud anatomy, the temporary borrowing rationalization. The provision gives staff a structured, dignified, interest-free alternative to taking a decision that will cost them far more than the money they needed. 4.2. The Interest-Free Staff Loan Facility. Welfare Policy Section 2.5. Feature under 18 months tenure, 18 months plus tenure. Interest rate 0%. Interest-free 0%. Interest-free. Maximum access 120,000 Nigerian nairas, 200,000 Nigerian nairas. Repayment method: automated monthly payroll deductions. Automated monthly payroll deductions. Monthly repayment cap: maximum 38% of gross monthly salary. Maximum 38% of gross monthly salary. Final documentation: formal repayment certification issued. Formal repayment certification issued. 4.3. The critical timing principle. Before the line. The loan provision can only protect you if you access it before crossing an ethical line. The moment you take school funds without authorization, you cross from a financial hardship case into a gross misconduct case. These are processed through entirely different systems with entirely different outcomes. Before the line versus after the line. Before the line, call the employee relations officer or campaign manager. I have a family emergency and I need to understand if I can access the loan provision urgently. Outcome: structured support, zero disciplinary record, dignity preserved, problem solved. After the line, take 5,000 Nigerian nairas from the registration cash. Outcome: gross misconduct investigation, financial restitution demand, disciplinary record, potential termination, potential criminal referral, community shame, and, ironically, still needing to solve the original financial problem. The campaign cannot protect your employment after you cross the line. It can only help you before you do. 4.4. Breaking the stigma of financial stress. In many Nigerian professional environments, admitting financial difficulty carries a deep cultural stigma. There is a fear of being seen as irresponsible or of colleagues knowing your circumstances. The campaign's design specifically addresses this. Loan requests are processed privately through the employee relations officer. They are not broadcast to colleagues. Seeking the loan provision is explicitly categorized by the campaign as an act of professional maturity, not a weakness. The alternative, predatory external loan apps, contacts your workplace, harasses your references, and can create far greater professional exposure than the original financial need. The Welfare Policy's Proposed Emergency Salary Advance, Section 7.2, goes further. A 48-hour rapid access micro advance of up to 15% of monthly pay reserved for acute medical or family emergencies. 4.5 Life Assurance Coverage, Welfare Policy Section 2.5. Beyond the loan facility, the Welfare Policy confirms that eligible staff are covered by an active life assurance policy with a sum assured of up to 1 million Nigerian nairas for the total duration of their active deployment. Trainers should ensure all staff are aware of this provision, as it represents significant financial security for their families. Clipboard Block 4 Scenario: The Hospital Deposit. Folake's son has been admitted to the local clinic following a sudden fever. The doctor says a 25,000 Nigerian nairas deposit must be made immediately before treatment begins. Folake has no money in her account. Her next salary arrives in 12 days. She is scheduled to open the school in 1 hour and will be receiving the morning registration fees. She is thinking about whether she can borrow from the morning registrations to pay the hospital deposit. Memo discussion questions for the room. 19. Before Folake makes any decision, what is the correct, step-by-step protocol for accessing emergency financial support under the Code and Welfare Policy? Name the specific provision and who she should contact. 20. If Folake takes 25,000 Nigerian nairas from the morning registration fees and replaces it on payday, which specific sections of the Code has she violated? 21. What is the maximum amount Folake could potentially access through the interest-free loan facility, given she has been deployed for 10 months? 22. What psychological and practical pressures make Folake's situation difficult, and how does the campaign's framework specifically address each of those pressures? 23. Design a 3-sentence script that Folake can use when calling the Employee Relations Officer to request emergency support, professional, clear, and aligned with the Code's protocols. Stopwatch Block 5. Attendance, punctuality, and the 3 forbidden exits. Time: 1:15 to 1:35. Duration: 20 minutes. Delivery style: precise, firm, methodical. Every rule has a name. Every name has a penalty. Code of Conduct Anchors. Section 8. Attendance and Punctuality. Section 10F. Section 15.1. Attendance Violations. Section 15.2. Unexcused Absence. 5.1. The Punctuality and Regularity Baseline. The Staff Welfare Policy opens its core philosophy with 4 words: punctuality and regularity. These are not aspirational descriptors. They are operational baselines. They mean that your presence at the right time, every day, is the foundation upon which every other professional contribution you make is evaluated. A teacher who delivers brilliant lessons but arrives 20 minutes late 3 times a week is not a partially compliant teacher. They are disrupting the opening routine, undermining the accountability system, and communicating to pupils at the most formative stage of their education that punctuality is optional. It is not. 5.2. The Attendance Architecture. Critical Times. Role/context, deadline, authority/section. Stewardship Duo, Lead and Support Shield, 7:50 a.m. Section 8, B. 10 minutes before standard cutoff. All other staff 7:59 a.m. Section 8, A. Present and ready for duty. All meetings, webinars, virtual sessions 5 minutes before start Section 8, D. Absolute accountability window. Query responses, official correspondence within 48 hours of receipt Section 15.0, B. Due process overhaul provision. Absence notification to supervisor by 7 a.m. on day of absence Section 8, G. Advanced notification requirement. Medical certificate submission after absence within 48 hours Section 8, G. Stewardship departure no earlier than 1:45 p.m. Section 8, B, and only after premises secured. 5.3. The 3 forbidden exits. Section 10, C. The Code defines 3 specific attendance infractions by name. Understanding the precise definition of each is critical because the penalties differ significantly. EDGE in Section 10A. Defined as arriving on site, resuming duties, or logging digital attendance after the mandated morning cutoff times, 7:50 a.m. for the Stewardship Duo and 7:59 a.m. for all other staff without prior written approval. Key distinction: Edge-in is specifically about arrival timing. Even arriving 1 minute late technically constitutes edge-in. The code uses the term to capture the pattern of staff who consistently arrive moments after the cutoff, as if testing the boundary rather than committing to the standard. Offense occurrence penalty. Edge in first occurrence, -10 scorecard points. Edge in second occurrence onwards, -10 points plus 500 Nigerian naira salary deduction per occurrence. Creep out, Section 10C. Defined as packing up instructional materials, shutting down workstations, or physically preparing to depart before the official closing bell or mandated end time without explicit permission. The operative distinction between creep out and a standard departure is preparation and intent. A teacher who, 15 minutes before closing, packs their personal bag, shuts down their laptop, and positions themselves near the gate, even if they have not yet left, has technically committed creep out. It signals to pupils and colleagues that the school day is effectively over before it officially is. Offense occurrence penalty. Creep out every occurrence, -10 scorecard points. Creep out fourth occurrence onwards, -10 points plus 500 Nigerian nairas per occurrence. Sneak out, Section 10B. Defined as leaving the school premises during official operational hours for any personal reason without formal, written authorization from a direct supervisor. Sneak out is the most serious of the three. Unlike edge in and creep out, which are timing related, sneak out involves a complete, unauthorized departure from the premises during school hours. This creates immediate supervision gaps, potential child safety risks, and a direct breakdown in operational accountability. Offense occurrence penalty. Sneak out every occurrence, -50 scorecard points plus 5,000 Nigerian nairas fine. 5.4 Unexcused absence, the escalating ladder. The code draws a sharp distinction between excused and unexcused absence. A properly notified, documented absence with prior supervisor approval and a valid medical certificate, where applicable, is managed through the leave provisions. An unexcused absence, showing up without prior notification or adequate justification, triggers a dramatically escalating penalty ladder. Offense occurrence penalty. Unexcused absence day, 1 immediate 1-week suspension without pay. Unexcused absence day, 2 fine. 10 days gross pay or 10,000 Nigerian nairas, whichever is higher. Unexcused absence day, 3 fine. 15 days gross pay or 25,000 Nigerian nairas, whichever is higher.
Une excuse d'absence des 4 indéfinis de suspension plus formale investigative inquiry.
Abandonment, 3+ days without communication. First occurrence, formal written warning. Abandonment second occurrence, 3-day suspension, without pay. Abandonment third occurrence, administrative review, potential termination. 5.5 Welfare Policy, leave benefits, your legitimate absences. The code's attendance requirements must be understood alongside the generous leave provisions in the welfare policy, which define legitimate, protected absences. Leave type entitlement conditions / guardrails. Birthday release, Section 3.1. 1 day paid on the exact date of your birthday. Sick leave, Section 3.2. 5 days per year paid, no scorecard or attendance penalty. Paternity leave, Section 3.3. 14 calendar days paid within 6 weeks of birth. Use it or lose it. Cannot be converted to cash. Maternity leave, Section 3.4. 3 months paid full pay. 2 weeks soft landing return integration. Compassionate leave, Section 3.5. 2 days paid immediate family bereavement. Critical illness leave, Section 3.7. 30 days protected days 1 to 14. 100% pay. Full rest. Days 15 to 30. 100% pay, light remote duties. Clipboard Block 5 scenario. The 3 mistakes in 1 morning. Tund is a CTO who is not on stewardship duty this week. On Monday, he arrives at 8:12 a.m. without prior notification. His phone was off. At 11:45 a.m., during free period, he quietly leaves the school gate to buy food from the market and returns at 12:15 p.m. No one sees him leave. At 2:50 p.m., with the school bell set for 3 p.m., he begins packing his bag and stacking his materials in full view of the class. Memo discussion questions for the room. 24. Name and define the exact offense Tund has committed for each of the 3 events. Use the Section 10 definitions precisely. 25. Calculate the total scorecard deduction and financial penalties Tund faces for this single Monday. Show you're working. 26. This is Tund's 3rd edge in occurrence this month. His previous 2 edge-ins already generated minus 10 points each. What additional financial penalty is triggered from this 3rd occurrence under Section 15.1v? 27. If Tund's total disciplinary deductions this month exceed the 33% statutory cap under Section 15.0c, what happens to the excess balance? Is it forgiven? 28. How should Tund have managed the food situation during free period without violating the sneak-out rule? Stopwatch Block 6. De-escalation, stumbling out, and the domestic interference prohibition. Time: 1:35 to 1:55 duration, 20 minutes. Delivery style: calm but immovable, emphasis on the how of professional composure. Code of Conduct Anchors: Section 10, P, Q, Section 13, B, D, G, Section 15.4, Section 18, Conflict Resolution and Professional Boundaries. 6.1 De-escalation is a professional competency. Conflict will occur in any human environment. 2 adults with different communication styles, different pressures, and different values working in close proximity will inevitably have disagreements. The code does not pretend otherwise, nor does it prohibit disagreement. What it regulates is where, how, and in front of whom disagreements are expressed. A school is not merely a workplace. It is a child's primary experience of how adults manage conflict and authority. Every confrontation witnessed by a pupil is a lesson, intended or not. The campaign's de-escalation requirements exist precisely to protect the educational environment from the emotional overflow of adult disputes. 6.2 The Private De-escalation Mandate, Section 18.2. Section 18.2a states, in the event of a heated disagreement or conflict, both parties must immediately cease the exchange and withdraw to a private office or a designated cool-off area for de-escalation. The key word is immediately. The code does not provide for a brief continuation of the argument before withdrawal, or for one final exchange of words before stepping away. At the point where a conversation becomes heated, raised voices, aggressive body language, personal attacks, both parties are required to stop and separate. The de-escalation protocol, step by step. Step 1. Stop. When a disagreement becomes heated, either party can and should say calmly, I think we should pause this conversation and take it somewhere private. This is not weakness. It is professionalism. Step 2. Separate. Both parties withdraw to a private office, a cool-off zone, or to separate spaces. Neither party should chase the other or continue the exchange in transit. Step 3. Cool. A minimum of 30 minutes is recommended before re-engaging. Neither party should send messages escalating the matter to others during this period. Step 4. Escalate properly. If the matter cannot be resolved between the 2 parties, it is escalated to the team lead or head teacher for structured mediation, following the chain of command in Section 9. Step 5. Document. Both parties should document their account of the incident in writing for the formal record, especially if a formal HR process is anticipated. 6.3 Public Outburst, Section 10, P, and Section 15.4. Section 10, P, defines a public outburst as aggressive, loud, or confrontational displays of anger, including exiting the school premises or any argument on site or in view of pupils, teachers, parents, or the public, which damage the reputation of the campaign. Offense occurrence penalty. Public confrontation, open arguments on site. First occurrence, final warning letter plus 15,000 Nigerian nairas fine. Public confrontation, second occurrence, 2-week suspension without pay. Public confrontation, third occurrence, summary, dismissal. The 15,000 Nigerian nairas fine for a first instance public confrontation is substantial and immediate. It is designed to reflect the severity of the reputational and psychological harm that a public argument in a school causes, not just to the campaign, but to the children who witness it. 6.4 Stumbling out, Section 10, P. elaborated, and Section 15.4. Stumbling out is defined as impulsive walkouts, packing up and leaving the school premises in an agitated or emotional state during official hours without formal supervisor approval. Note that stumbling out is categorized under the public outburst definition. It is treated as a visible, confrontational act even if no words are exchanged, because the act of storming out is itself a public communication of outrage. Offense occurrence penalty. Stumbling out first occurrence formal written warning. Stumbling out second occurrence deduction equivalent to 10 days gross pay. Stumbling out third occurrence summary dismissal. What stumbling out looks like in practice. A teacher is challenged during a staff meeting and walks out without notice or permission during the session. A CTO receives a critical formal query and, in anger, packs their bag and walks off school premises before responding. After a heated exchange with a team lead, a staff member leaves the compound without informing anyone and becomes unreachable for several hours. A teacher storms out of a parent-teacher conference that becomes confrontational. Any departure from school premises during official hours in an agitated or emotional state without prior written authorization from the head teacher or a higher authority in the chain of command. 6.5 Domestic and External Interference, Section 10Q and Section 13D. Section 10Q defines domestic or external interference as allowing or encouraging family members, personal friends, or outside parties to enter school premises to intervene in, disrupt, challenge, or otherwise influence school operations or staff disputes. Section 13D elevates this prohibition to an absolute ban. Staff are entirely prohibited from inviting, encouraging, or permitting domestic or external interference, including intervention by spouses, relatives, personal friends, or neighborhood associates, on school premises to challenge management, threaten colleagues, or disrupt operations. Offense occurrence penalty. Domestic interference. Family/external party on premises. First occurrence final warning letter plus 1 week suspension without pay. Domestic interference second occurrence summary dismissal. The severity of these penalties reflects the existential threat that external interference poses to a community school. The moment parents or community members see school affairs being settled by relatives or local influencers arriving at the gate, the institution's authority, neutrality, and safety are permanently compromised. 6.6 Adult Workplace Violence, Section 13G. The Code addresses physical conflict between staff members with unambiguous directness. Section 13G states, the Code of Conduct prohibits physical fighting, swearing, exchanging words in confrontational tone, throwing objects, or issuing threats of harm between staff members. Engaging in either or a combination of these shall be regarded as gross misconduct leading to immediate suspension.
Gross misconduct, immediate consequences.
Gross misconduct is defined in Section 10I as severe, egregious breaches that compromise child safety, financial integrity, or institutional trust. Immediate suspension is the first step, protective, not punitive. Suspension pending investigation under Section 22B is capped at 14 days and is paid at half pay, restored fully upon exoneration. The investigation leads to either reinstatement or termination plus potential referral to law enforcement authorities. Physical violence between staff, even outside school hours but connected to a workplace dispute, falls under this provision. Clipboard Block 6 scenario. The staff meeting walkout. During an open staff meeting, a colleague strongly and publicly challenges Emika's lesson delivery, saying in front of the entire team, "Your continuous assessments are consistently sloppy and you are bringing down the school's academic average." Emika feels deeply insulted and humiliated. His blood pressure rises, and he feels the immediate urge to pick up his bag and walk out of the school gate to avoid doing something aggressive. He also texts his elder brother, who lives nearby, saying, "Come to the school. I am being disrespected." Memo discussion questions for the room. 29. If Emika walks out of the school compound without permission from the head teacher at this moment, what exact offense has he committed under Section 10 and Section 15.4? What is the first occurrence penalty? 30. If Emika's brother arrives at the school gate and enters the compound to confront the colleague or a supervisor, what offense has Emika now additionally committed? What is the penalty under Section 15.4? 31, separately, was the colleague's behavior in publicly challenging Emika's lesson delivery in front of the entire team appropriate? Which sections of the code might be relevant to how that challenge should have been raised? 32. Walk us through what Emika should have done from the moment the colleague made the confrontational comment, step by step, aligned with the de-escalation protocol in Section 18.2. 33. How does Emika's legitimate grievance about being publicly humiliated get addressed through the correct channels without triggering disciplinary consequences for himself? Stopwatch Block 7. Eradicating bullying, positional abuse, and community customer service. Time: 1:55 to 2:15. Duration: 20 minutes. Delivery style: firm and empathetic. Zero tolerance delivered with professional compassion. Code of Conduct Anchors: Section 10 N.S., Section 13 E.F., Section 15.3, 23 to 25, Section 15.7, Section 19. 7.1 Defining peer bullying. Section 10N. Section 10N defines bullying and harassment as persistent, unwelcome, offensive, or aggressive behavior, comments, or actions directed at a pupil or staff member that create an intimidating, hostile, or humiliating environment. The critical qualifier is persistent. A single sharp comment, while potentially a code violation under other provisions, does not alone constitute bullying. Bullying is defined by pattern, repeated, deliberate targeting of an individual that creates a sustained environment of intimidation or humiliation. What peer bullying looks like among CTOs. Consistently excluding a colleague from group chats, meals, or informal staff communication, while including all others. Making repeated comments, even framed as jokes, about a colleague's teaching ability, appearance, accent, or background in front of others. Deliberately spreading false or unflattering information about a colleague's professional performance or personal life. Ignoring or dismissing a colleague's contributions in meetings while actively engaging with others. Leveraging social influence to turn other staff members against a specific individual. Online bullying, private messages designed to demean, or social media posts that mock, ridicule, or expose a colleague. Offense occurrence penalty. Bullying of a colleague first occurrence final warning letter. Bullying second occurrence immediate demotion in rank plus total scorecard reset. Bullying third occurrence summary dismissal. The second occurrence penalty is particularly significant. Not only is the bullying staff member demoted, but their entire scorecard, all accumulated performance points, is completely reset to 0. This erases months of earned professional standing. 7.2 Positional power tripping, victimization, and adverse supervisory action. Section 10Y defines victimization/adverse supervisory action as any deliberate attempt by a senior staff member to abuse positional authority by assigning unfavorable duties, manipulating scorecard data, or issuing unwarranted queries against a subordinate out of personal malice or bias. Team leads and senior staff are explicitly described in the code as appointed to facilitate, support, and audit workflows, not to wield personal influence or settle personal scores. This is not a motivational guideline. It is a legally grounded operational boundary. Examples of adverse supervisory action. Assigning a subordinate who filed an HR complaint to all the most undesirable duty schedules in retaliation. Lowering a staff member's scorecard evaluation without documented, objective evidence of a performance issue. Issuing repeated, unsubstantiated queries to a specific subordinate while ignoring identical behaviors by others. Excluding a staff member from training opportunities or performance bonus eligibility out of personal bias. Using authority to block the legitimate escalation of a subordinate's grievance through the chain of command. 7.3 Retaliatory confrontation, the strongest individual protection. Section 15.7 governs retaliatory confrontation, defined in Section 10S as Any attempt by a supervisor or colleague to threaten, confront, intimidate, penalize, or otherwise mistreat a staff member as a consequence of that individual filing an HR report or raising a safeguarding concern. Offense occurrence penalty. Retaliatory confrontation. Whistleblower protection enforcement. First occurrence immediate demotion from leadership role, if applicable, plus 20,000 Nigerian nairas fine plus 2-week suspension without pay. Retaliatory confrontation second occurrence summary dismissal plus immediate removal from campaign premises. The 20,000 Nigerian nairas fine plus 2-week suspension on the first occurrence of retaliation represents the harshest first strike penalty in the entire sanction grid. This reflects the campaign's absolute commitment to protecting whistleblowers and ensuring that the reporting system functions without fear. 7.4 Community Customer Service. Parents as primary stakeholders. Section 4(b) of the Code establishes the baseline. Treat all pupils, parents and guardians, colleagues, and community members with dignity, fairness, and impartiality. For parents specifically, the Code frames them as the campaign's primary stakeholders. The term customer service in an educational context means something specific. It means that even when a parent is wrong, even when they are agitated, even when their complaint is unfounded, our response must remain calm, professional, and de-escalatory. We do not match a parent's energy when that energy is confrontational. The Elite Customer Service Protocol for Parent Interactions. Receive. Welcome the parent calmly, regardless of their emotional state. Good morning. I can see you have a concern. Please come and sit down so we can discuss it properly. Listen. Allow the parent to fully express their concern without interruption. Take brief, visible notes to communicate that you are taking the matter seriously. Acknowledge. Thank you for bringing this to my attention. I understand that this situation has caused you concern, and I want to address it properly. Do not defend. Avoid immediately defending yourself or dismissing the parent's concern. Even if you know the complaint is inaccurate, the investigation happens through proper channels. Escalate. If the parent becomes verbally aggressive, calmly state, I want to give this the proper attention it deserves. I am going to bring in our head teacher so that we can address this together. Then escort the parent and inform the head teacher. Document. After the interaction, write a brief summary of what was discussed and submit it to the team lead. Clipboard Block 7 Scenario A. The agitated parent. A parent enters your classroom highly agitated, raising her voice and stating that you deliberately gave her daughter a failing grade because you have a personal grudge against the child. She is speaking loudly enough for other pupils in the corridor to hear. She is pointing aggressively and calling you an incompetent teacher who should not be working with children. Memo discussion questions for the room. 34. Walk through the Elite Customer Service Protocol step by step for this specific situation. What are your exact first 3 sentences? 35. At what point does this interaction require you to escalate to the head teacher, and how do you do that without making the parent feel dismissed? 36. What does the code say you absolutely must not do in this moment? What responses would constitute a violation of your own professional standards? 37. After the parent leaves, what documentation steps are required under the code? 38. If the parent's claim is ultimately found to be entirely unfounded, what specific provision in Section 11, Academic Integrity, protects you from any retroactive change to your grade records? Clipboard Block 7 Scenario B. The Vindictive Team Lead. 6 weeks ago, Amaka filed an HR concern about her team lead's conduct, alleging that he was consistently bypassing her input in team meetings. Since filing the complaint, Amaka has noticed that her duty schedule now consistently includes the most physically demanding assignments. Her last 2 scorecard evaluations have dropped significantly, even though her classroom observations were positive. Her team lead has also stopped acknowledging her in team communications. Memo discussion questions for the room. 39. Based on the patterns described, which specific code provisions appear to be violated by the team lead? Cite the section references. 40. Under Section 15.7, what is the penalty for a first occurrence of retaliatory confrontation? Does the team lead need to have verbally threatened Amaka for this penalty to apply? 41. Under Section 9.2, Permitted Escalation Bypass, which authority can AMACA report this situation to directly, without going through her team lead? 42. What documentary evidence should AMACA have been maintaining since filing her original complaint to support a formal case? 43. As a fellow CTO who has observed these patterns, what is your obligation under the code? What does Section 10K say about your silence? Stopwatch Block 8. Child Protection, the authoritative section. Time: 2:15 to 2:35. Duration: 20 minutes. Delivery style: grave, measured, authoritative. This section supersedes all others. Code of Conduct Anchors. Section 7. Child Protection, authoritative. Section 5. Section 16.2. Safeguarding SOPs. Section 15.3. XX. 22. Critical Notice to Trainers. Section 7 of the Code of Conduct is the only section marked authoritative. This means it supersedes all other provisions in any area of conflict relating to child safety. No administrative convenience, staffing constraint, cultural norm, personal loyalty, or friendship overrides the obligations in this section. The trainer must communicate this with absolute seriousness. 8.1 The absolute, non-derogable duty. Section 7A states, all teachers and campaign staff have an absolute, non-derogable legal, moral, and professional duty to protect and safeguard every child at all times and under all circumstances. The phrase, non-derogable, is a legal term meaning the duty cannot be reduced, waived, suspended, or negotiated away under any circumstances. There is no context in which a CTO's obligation to protect a child is diminished, not by personal loyalty, not by cultural norms, not by the identity of the perpetrator, and not by the seniority of anyone involved. 8.2 The 2-hour reporting window. Section 7B. Any suspicion, allegation, observed sign, or direct disclosure of child abuse, whether physical, emotional, sexual, or through neglect, must be reported to the designated campaign safeguarding authority and no later than 2 hours after observation or disclosure. The 4R protocol: listen, record, report, refer. Listen. When a child discloses something concerning, give them your full, calm attention. Do not express shock, disbelief, or alarm. Use open, non-leading questions only. Can you tell me more about that? Record. Immediately after the disclosure, write down the child's exact words in quotation marks, the time and date, where the disclosure occurred, and who else was present. Use the campaign's record of concern form, section 16.2d. Report. Within 2 hours, report to the campaign's safeguarding lead. This report is not optional. The 2-hour window is not a guideline. Exceeding it is a code violation in its own right. Refer. Allow the safeguarding lead to initiate the formal investigation and referral process. Your role is complete at the point of report. Do not investigate yourself. 8.3 What you must not do. Section 7C. The code is explicit about the actions that constitute interference with a safeguarding process. Do not investigate suspected abuse yourself. You do not have the training, and self-investigation can destroy evidence and re-traumatize the child. Do not promise confidentiality to a child disclosing abuse. You cannot keep that promise, and making it undermines the child's trust in the system. Do not delay the report while seeking additional confirmation. Suspicion alone is sufficient grounds to report. You are not required to have proof. Do not discuss the matter with colleagues not directly involved in the investigation. This breaches confidentiality and can compromise the process. Do not confront the suspected perpetrator, even if you strongly believe you know who is responsible. 8.4 The Open Door Rule and Physical Safety Standards. Section 16.2a. Section 16.2a states, doors must remain fully open or have a clear and unobstructed window during all one-on-one meetings between a staff member and a pupil. This is an absolute operational rule, not a contextual guideline. It applies to remedial sessions, disciplinary conversations, emotional support check-ins, and any other one-on-one interaction with a pupil. The intent is twofold: to protect the child and to protect the staff member from unfounded allegations. Section 7E expands this. No adult member of staff shall be alone with a single pupil in an enclosed or unobserved space. All one-on-one interactions must take place with doors open or within sight of a colleague. 8.5 Digital Safeguarding, Section 16.2(c) and Section 7(f). Section 7(f) is unambiguous. Staff must not share personal contact details, phone numbers, social media accounts, with pupils outside of authorized campaign communication channels. Section 16.2(c) reinforces this. Staff must not exchange personal social media handles, messaging app contacts, or private email addresses with any pupil. All digital communication with pupils must occur exclusively through campaign-authorized channels. Why digital safeguarding matters. Digital grooming is one of the fastest-growing forms of child abuse in Nigeria. It typically begins with an adult building trust through informal digital contact, WhatsApp messages, Instagram follows, phone calls, before gradually introducing inappropriate content or relationships. Even a staff member with entirely benign intentions who exchanges personal numbers with a student creates 1. A safeguarding risk to the child, 2. A professional liability risk to themselves, and 3. A reputational risk to the campaign. Campaign-authorized channels provide a transparent, auditable communication record that protects all parties. 8.6 Consequences for failure to report, Section 15.3, XX 22. Offense occurrence penalty. Failure to report suspected child abuse, first occurrence 7-day suspension without pay. Failure to report suspected child abuse, second occurrence review for potential termination. Failure to report suspected child abuse, third occurrence immediate termination plus referral to law enforcement. Additionally, Section 7(g) specifies failure to report, any delay in reporting beyond the mandated 2-hour window, or any action that obstructs or discourages a safeguarding report constitutes a serious breach of contract and a top-tier offense subject to immediate suspension, termination, and referral to law enforcement authorities. Clipboard Block 8 Scenario: The Bruised Arm. On a Tuesday morning, while helping a pupil open a workbook, you notice a series of dark bruises on the child's upper arm in a pattern that looks like finger marks. You gently ask the child if she is okay. She becomes quiet and looks at the floor, saying, "My uncle came to stay with us." She then says, "Please don't tell anyone, or he'll be very angry." It is 10:15 a.m. You are scheduled to teach 3 more classes before lunch. Memo discussion questions for the room. 44. What is the exact sequence of steps you are required to take under Section 7 and Section 16.2, and what is the latest time by which you must have made a formal report? 45. The child asked you not to tell anyone. Can you promise her confidentiality? What should you say to her instead that is both honest and caring? 46. You cannot investigate the situation yourself, but you need to document what you observed. What specific information does Section 16.2(d) require you to record on the Record of Concern form? 47. Your scheduled classes begin in 10 minutes. What takes priority? Your teaching schedule or the safeguarding report? What does the code say, and what does authoritative mean in the context of Section 7? 48. 3 weeks later, a colleague asks you casually what happened with that pupil with the bruises because the story has spread among staff. How do you respond, and what does the code say about your obligation of confidentiality during an active investigation? Stopwatch Block 9. Speaking up, safe reporting, and due process protections. Time: 2:35 to 2:50. Duration: 15 minutes. Delivery style: reassuring, structural, emphasizing that the system is built to protect the reporter. Code of Conduct Anchors. Section 9, Chain of Command. Section 10, RS. Section 15.0, Legal Guardrails. Section 15.7, Section 18.4, Section 19, Section 22 and 23. 9.1 The Chain of Command, Standard Protocol. Section 9.1 establishes the standard reporting hierarchy. Teacher Team Lead Head Teacher Liaison Officer Employee Relations Officer YNDU Executive Campaign Managers. In the vast majority of situations, this is the path that all concerns, grievances, and reports must travel, sequentially, respectfully, and in writing. 9.2 The Exception Bypass Protocol, Section 9.2. However, the Code acknowledges that sequential escalation is not always appropriate or safe. Section 9.2 explicitly defines the situations where a staff member may bypass the standard chain without it constituting insubordination. Immediate child safeguarding concerns or child abuse disclosures. These always go directly to the safeguarding lead or campaign manager, regardless of the chain. Clear conflicts of interest, specifically where the direct supervisor is the subject of the grievance. Credible allegations of supervisor bias, victimization, or retaliatory conduct. A whistleblower reports as defined in Section 10 are any genuine, good faith report of a code violation. In these cases, the matter must be escalated directly to the employee relations officer, an elder statesman recognized by the community, or a campaign manager. These bypass reports are protected by ironclad whistleblower protections. 9.3 Ironclad Whistleblower Guarantees, Section 10 R, and Section 18.4. Section 10 R defines whistleblower protection as the absolute, non-negotiable organizational guarantee that any staff member who reports a genuine violation of this code in good faith shall be fully protected from adverse action. Your 4 whistleblower protections. 1. Confidentiality. Your identity as the reporting party is protected. The reported individual will not be told who filed the report. 2. Immunity. You face 0 scorecard deductions or salary penalties arising from or connected to your report. 3. Anti-retaliation. You are protected from any retaliatory demotions, schedule changes, additional queries, or social exclusion as a consequence of your report. 4. Escalation pathway. You have a direct, protected route to senior authority that cannot be blocked by anyone in the intermediate chain. 9.4 Your due process protections, Section 15.0. The Code's accountability framework cuts in both directions. You are protected not only as a potential reporter, you are also protected as a staff member facing a disciplinary action. Section 15.0 establishes 3 critical legal guardrails. Your 3 due process protections. The 48-hour response window. No scorecard deduction or fine can be locked in or executed until you have received a formal written query and been given a full 48 hours to submit your official response. Penalties applied before your response window closes are procedurally invalid, Section 15.0b. The 33% statutory CAP, the total aggregate of all disciplinary fines in any single calendar month cannot exceed 1/3, 33%, of your gross monthly wage. This is aligned with the Nigerian Labor Act. Any amount above this cap is deferred, not forgiven, to the next cycle, Section 15.0c. The carried forward principle. Deferred fines accumulate until fully liquidated, but your baseline monthly take-home is protected from single-month devastation, Section 15.0d. 9.5 The investigation process, Section 22. When a formal disciplinary complaint is filed, the Code mandates a structured investigation process. 49 Preliminary review. A 48-hour assessment by the employee relations officer to determine if a formal inquiry is warranted. 50 Suspension pending investigation. Protective, not punitive, capped at 14 days at half pay, fully restored upon exoneration. 51 Investigation panel. Campaign stakeholders and, where necessary, community stakeholders, head teacher, employee relations officer, YNDU representative. 52 Confidentiality mandate. Any staff member who leaks details of an ongoing investigation faces immediate disciplinary action for deception and dishonesty. 9.6 The appeals process, Section 23. Every staff member has the right to appeal any disciplinary decision. The process is 53 Right to respond. All staff have 2 days to respond to any allegation before any penalty is locked in. 54 Right to appeal. 3 days from receiving a sanction to appeal in writing. If no appeal is received within 3 days, the decision is locked and incontestable. 55 Final arbiter. The YNDU executive and campaign managers serve as the joint final appeal board, required to issue a binding verdict within 7 working days. Clipboard Block 9 scenario. The wrongful query. On a Friday afternoon, you receive a formal query accusing you of a roll call error from the previous Monday. The query demands your response within 6 hours. You check your records and discover that the alleged error was actually caused by a portal system glitch, not human error, and you have the screenshots to prove it. You are also aware that this query was issued by the same team lead who gave you an unfavorable duty schedule last week after you raised a concern about his conduct. Memo discussion questions for the room. 56. Under Section 15.0, B, is the 6-hour response deadline in the query procedurally valid? What is the mandatory minimum response window under the code? And what does this mean for the penalty timeline? 57. You have documentary evidence that the roll call error was a system error, not your fault. Through which channel do you formally submit this evidence, and within what time frame? 58. If you believe the query is retaliatory, connected to your previous concern about the team lead, which specific provision of the code protects you, and who do you report this pattern to? 59. Under Section 9.2, would reporting this retaliation directly to the Employee Relations Officer, bypassing your team lead, constitute insubordination? Why? Or why not? 60. If the penalty is wrongly applied despite your evidence, walk us through the exact appeals process you would follow under Section 23, including the deadlines at each stage. Stopwatch Block 10. The Welfare Policy, your full benefits architecture. Time, 2:50 to 3:05 duration, 15 minutes. Delivery style, positive, energizing, reinforcing that the campaign is a two-way covenant. Welfare Policy Anchors, Sections 2.1, 2.3, 2.4, 2.6 Separation, Section 3, Section 4, Section 7, Future Enhancements. 10.1 Remuneration and Payroll Mechanics. The welfare policy establishes a transparent compensation framework. The base daily rate of 1,314.94 Nigerian nairas is dynamically scaled based on verifiable field experience and formal academic qualifications. Monthly salaries are processed on the first of the consecutive month, with digital payslips transmitted at least 24 hours before payday, ensuring no staff member receives a pay surprise. 10.2 Performance incentives and bonuses. Incentive amount conditions. Wardrobe allowance, quarterly, 10,000 Nigerian nairas minimum 90% quarterly scorecard average. 13th month allowance, New Year's Eve, 10,000 Nigerian nairas 90% annual scorecard average plus, min 6 months tenure plus graduated probation. Training module bonus, per module, 500 Nigerian nairas per authorized training module completed and assessed on time. P4P performance bonus discretionary high performance tied to classroom metrics, attendance, community outcomes. Renaissance Classroom Grant, proposed, 15,000 Nigerian nairas 90% plus scorecard for 2 consecutive quarters plus approved project pitch. Educator of the Quarter, proposed, 5,000 Nigerian nairas cash peer nominated. Incentivises collaborative leadership. 10.3 The scorecard, performance benchmark. The monthly scorecard is the quantitative backbone of the campaign's performance management system. Every staff member is required to maintain a running baseline average of 85%. Scorecard results are published on the last day of every calendar month. Scorecard consequences. Below 85% for 3 consecutive months. Automatic demotion back to active probationary status for structured, close quarters monitoring and mandatory performance support. Below 90%, ineligible for wardrobe allowance, quarterly and 13th month allowance, year-end. The scorecard is cumulative. Every point deduction from the sanction grid is applied directly to the monthly scorecard and translates directly into payroll adjustments. Scorecard reset occurs on the second occurrence of bullying. All accumulated performance points are erased to 0, regardless of how long they were built up. 10.4 Separation and Transition Security, Section 2.6. The welfare policy establishes clear, dignified separation protocols for when employment concludes, whether through resignation, campaign restructuring, or termination for cause. 2-week notice period. Either party must give exactly 2 weeks written notice before formal separation. Clear and sign off register. Must be completed on the final working day, confirming return of all access, records, and keys. Pay in lieu. If the campaign requires immediate separation for operational reasons, a lump sum payment equivalent to 2 weeks' base salary, 20,000 Nigerian nairas, is provided. Exclusion for cause, separation cushion, notice framework, and final certificate of service are all null and void if termination is due to gross misconduct, chronic scorecard failure, or child protection policy violation. Clipboard Block 10 scenario. Building toward the wardrobe allowance. Ngozi has been deployed for 8 months. She maintains a consistent 88% scorecard average. She had 2 edge and infractions in month 3, which cost her minus 20 scorecard points and a 500 Nigerian nairas deduction. She completed 3 authorized training modules in months 4 and 5. She is now planning her financial year and wants to know what she is currently eligible for and what she needs to do to access additional benefits. Memo discussion questions for the room. 61. Is Ngozi currently eligible for the wardrobe allowance? Explain the precise scorecard threshold and whether her current 88% average qualifies or disqualifies her. 62. Calculate Ngozi's training module bonuses. What has she earned from the 3 completed modules? 63. What specific score, average, and tenure conditions must Ngozi satisfy to be eligible for the 13th month allowance at year end? Is she currently on track? 64. Ngozi wants to propose a Renaissance Classroom grant project. What scorecard performance does she need to sustain, and for how long, before she can pitch? Note: this is a proposed benefit. 65. If Ngozi receives a disciplinary deduction of 4,500 Nigerian nairas in a month where her gross salary is 12,000 Nigerian nairas, calculate the maximum disciplinary deduction permitted under the 33% statutory cap in Section 15.0 C. Is the full 4,500 Nigerian nairas deductible in that month? Stopwatch session conclusion, Q&A, and signed acknowledgement. Time: 3:05 to 3:20. Duration: 15 minutes. Delivery style: anchoring, uplifting, action-oriented. Trainer closing script. Team, we have spent the last 3 hours going deep into the architecture of this campaign, the rules, the penalties, the protections, and the benefits. I want to close with this. These rules are not designed to police you. They are designed to protect you from each other, from external pressures, from your own worst moments under stress, and from the legal and reputational consequences that come when professional standards collapse. The children of Egbalu and Guru did not choose their circumstances, but they have chosen to come to this school, to sit in your classroom, to learn from you, to trust you. Every rule in the Code of Conduct exists to protect that trust, your trust in this campaign, and their trust in all of us. The welfare policy exists because we recognize that excellence cannot be demanded without support. You are our most critical operational asset. The interest-free loans, the protected leave, the 13th month allowance, the whistleblower protections, these are not concessions. They are the campaign's covenant with you. From today, ignorance of these boundaries is no longer a defense. From today, every one of you carries this framework not as a document in a folder, but as a professional standard in your daily decisions. Go back to your learning spaces and execute these standards with pride. Post-session checklist for trainers. Collect signed acknowledgement of receipt from all attendees. Record names of absent staff. They must attend a make-up session within 5 school days. Submit completed attendance register and scenario discussion notes to the head teacher. Flag any staff members who raise significant concerns or questions for follow-up with the Employee Relations Officer. Confirm that all staff have read and understood the Welfare Policy Credit Facility provisions, particularly the loan provision as an alternative to financial misconduct. Quick reference: the most critical numbers. 7:50 a.m. Stewardship duo must be on site. 7:59 a.m. All other staff must be present. 2 hours. Mandatory child safeguarding report window. 24 hours. Mandatory fund remittance window after collection. 24 hours. Mandatory payslip delivery before payday. 48 hours. Mandatory query response window before penalty is locked. 48 hours. Medical certificate submission after absence. 33%. Maximum monthly disciplinary deduction cap, Nigerian Labor Act. 85%. Minimum monthly scorecard average baseline. 90%. Threshold for wardrobe allowance and 13th month allowance eligibility. 120,000 Nigerian Nairas. Maximum loan access for staff under 18 months tenure. 200,000 Nigerian Nairas. Maximum loan access for staff with 18 months plus tenure. 20,000 Nigerian Nairas. Fine for first instance retaliatory confrontation, most severe first strike penalty. 15,000 Nigerian Nairas. Fine for first instance public confrontation on site. 1 million. Life assurance sum assured for eligible staff, Nigerian Naira. Staff acknowledgement of receipt and understanding. By signing below, I confirm that I have attended this professional development training session, received the Save the DPS Campaign Staff Code of Conduct 2025 edition and Staff Welfare Policy 2026 edition, and fully understood the provisions contained herein as a binding condition of my engagement with the campaign. Full name, CTO number,
Signature. Date.
empowering every Egbalu and Guru child with free, high-quality education. Save the DPS Campaign 2025 Code of Conduct 2026 Welfare Policy.